Okay, I believe I am recording, hopefully. So if everyone else is ready, I believe we can begin then. So,
Oh, I just say yeah.
okay. So, thanks for coming to this. This has been an idea that Riley and I have been cooking up for quite a bit. So thank you for taking the time to be here and to support this. So first, let's talk about, there we go. What the problem is when it comes to what we are facing as these, Division II universities trying to get esports going. I mean, collegiate esports is growing. There's no denial in that. I mean, programs such as my own program, which started this semester, they're popping up all over the place. That being said, there's very little local tournament support. When it comes to trying to find lands to take my teams to, it's just they're very few and far between. And if we want to go to any substantial amount, we have to travel super long distances just to play a few matches. Another sense is that we have all these arenas, like our university is spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on this brand new arena, and it's just really not going to get used as much as it should be. And I know the story is the same elsewhere. For example, Missouri Western, their facility is absolutely incredible. And the event that we went to, we went and played a match against them in person, was the very first one that they've ever hosted. And that's just a shame for the spaces that we are making. And finally, this is still just not being taken that seriously. Everyone that I talk to, especially within the community, who just do not have a sense of what esports is, they don't understand the legitimacy of what we are doing, of what impact we can have on students. So what we are trying to do then is we are trying to create an organized local esports league that falls under, in some form or another, the MIAA. And the things that we are going to focus on within that league are local play, getting people together and actually playing in the same room together, and production value, really stepping up what we have to offer so that we can prove that we are more legitimate, that we have something to offer. Now, first, some of you might be familiar. A concept like this has already happened, has already been demonstrated, which is the MCL. And if you guys have been in, if you had any part in the Midwest Collegiate League, the MCL, you will know that it was a complete disaster. It failed on many accounts, and I want to start by addressing those. So the major mistakes that the MCL fell into was, first, the lack of organization. It was just a Discord with some heads thrown in there with, a couple of, there's a role select channel and some stuff, but it was really unorganized in how it was run. The structure and the schedule was very weak. Two, the scope was too ambitious. It was trying to tackle multiple games at once. And it ended up just being overwhelming for everyone involved, especially when not every school involved had those games. So rosters ended up being like 3-4 teams, and it really wasn't anything spectacular. It really wasn't anything because they shot too high, and it was too relaxed. There wasn't any schedule, there wasn't any regulation. It was just sort of play, and we were trying to prove with the MCL that we can make something like this happen, but it ended up being way too relaxed, way too chill to be taken seriously by anyone. So it fell on the back burner for everyone involved. Everyone just kind of ignored it. So going back to this slide, we're focusing on two things. We're focusing on the local play, and we're focused on the production value. And through those things, we believe that we can fix the mistakes in the MCL. We believe that we can turn its mistakes and turn that idea into something that can actually be useful. So first of all, we're going to focus on local play. How do we actually get competing? How do we get into each other's spaces and start competing? Because that can be a lot of travel for just a couple hours of video games. Well, first, the main idea that this works on is the idea of midpoints. For example, let's say you had Pitt State and UCO, and they wanted to play against each other. That's a 3.5-hour drive. Now, granted, that's not insane. That's not horrible, but a 7-hour round trip for one match of one game, that can be a lot. But if we instead break it in half and we create a midpoint at Rogers State, and Rogers State hosted both teams. So each team had to only drive, just a little bit instead of having to go the full way. That's much more reasonable. And especially when you're talking about schools a lot further out, for example, Fort Hays, they're kind of far away from everyone else in the MIAA. These midpoints enable them from being able to, compete against only one or two schools, to being able to compete against most of the people within the MIAA. This is also a great opportunity for any colleges who have, really big, awesome arenas and are, trying to get their students involved in running events and, broadcasting and streaming and IT and that sort of stuff. This is a great opportunity for those universities to host more events. So you can host some of the more far away schools or some of the smaller schools who don't quite have that that space built in yet. This is we believe, a really elegant solution to get as many people involved and get as many local play events as possible. So the second thing that we're focusing on is production value. Actually making something, making this not just a Discord server where we compete on weekends, maybe something that's actually set. So first of all, that we want to focus on is streaming. We have so many students interested in streaming or running broadcast or shoutcasting, that sort of stuff. And we have the space to do it. We have the technology to do it based on the form that I sent out. A majority of you have streaming capabilities in some form or another. So we want to get those matches streamed. And they don't necessarily have to be done in-house. They don't have to be done in person. If we had a third-party university who had the capabilities for it, we can get matches played elsewhere streamed. So we can get those going. And then second is going to be standardized assets. We have so many streams going on in different places at different times, making sure that they all use the same assets, they use the same methods for how they do stuff to get that standardized look, to get everyone at that same level of quality, is going to be key for really upping that production value. Second is focusing on rules and regulations. We're going to have an official rule book. We're going to have an official schedule, things that everyone helps build, helps create, and then follows. Within that, there's also going to be like a list of requirements for every school. Okay, like you need, for example, you might need to participate in streaming in some form or another, or perhaps you need to have a volunteer who works on this project, who helps with scheduling, who helps with analytics, that sort of stuff. Having those volunteers can help the program run. Other requirements like that we will build together. That's really going to help up our production value on a more business sense, on a project management sense. And finally is promotion and marketing. That was a big downfall of the MCL. No one knew about it. Of all the schools in the MIAA, there's only like 5 or 6 schools in there at one point. So really getting onto that promotion and marketing train, and really pushing that every university participates as broadcasting. Hey, look what we are doing. Hey, look at all these awesome people that we're hosting in our arena. Look how happy everyone is. Get lots of pictures of students playing and being engaged, that sort of stuff. And then building in that a consistent, post schedules, branding, etc. If we have a set schedule of okay, here's how we promote before the match, here's how we promote during the match, here's how we promote after the match. Having that sort of schedule, having that structure, that's really going to bring this together into a different lane. So speaking of structure, what does this actually look like? This is maybe a really cool idea, you might be thinking, but what does it actually look like in a tangible sense? Well, over the summer, we would finalize planning, the schedule and other details. We would talk about this more, maybe meet on anywhere from a weekly to a monthly basis, and just talk about this, develop these things, and really get something going. Optimally in the fall, we could host a trial run. We can host one game. That's all we need is one title. Anything more, trying to stream as much as we are, trying to be as official as much as we are, it's just not going to come through. Something is going to have to sacrifice if we bring in any more than one game. So for the fall, we would focus on one game. At the moment, the majority of schools have Overwatch, so that would probably be our focus, but that's something that could be decided later. In the fall, we would focus on streaming every single match. Doesn't matter if they're all played in person, doesn't matter details, maybe if some things aren't as structured as we want it to be, doesn't matter. If the matches are being streamed, it's a success. And then we encourage as much in-person matches as possible. Obviously, something like this is going to take a long time to set up. Getting the funding, the support to travel as much as possible might is going to take some time. So nothing would be enforced in any sense of the word, but encouraging as many in-person matches as possible. And any matches that can't be done in person can very easily be done online. Over the winter break, we could analyze and reflect and improve on how the semester went. What went well, what didn't. Was the one game a success? Should we increase? How are the streams? How can we streamline the process? What hiccups did we run into consistently? That sort of thing. And then we plan out the spring semester. We take those notes, we update our documents, we update the schedule, and we roll something out in the spring. We increase the production as we can. We improve as we can. We create more assets. We create more things that we can use, and we focus a higher emphasis on promotion and marketing. While in the fall we'll still be sorting out some rough edges, maybe not something that we want to promote as much. Come in the spring, we'll have a lot of those details figured out, and we'll be able to put a lot higher emphasis on promoting what it is that we are doing and showing the legitimacy of our competitions. So just a quick summary, we are trying to do an esports league within the schools in the MIAA. We are trying to focus on local play through midpoint universities hosting teams as possible. We also are trying to ensure a high production value through streaming, regulation of rules, and promotion and marketing. And we are trying to do a trial run of just one title in the fall. So that's what we got. That is sort of our idea, the basic layout. And now I really just want to open it up to feedback. What do you guys think? What problems do you see? What ideas that we can build on? What do you guys think of this?
I have a question regarding the streaming.
Sure.
Okay.
Where would those streams live, and like who would have the ownership of them, and how would that work?
I think there's a couple different options for that, right? So I think when you look at kind of how other conferences that are hosting esports are doing these things, there's a couple different avenues to take. I think the first avenue, when you're talking about streams that your school is doing, that you're participating in, I think that it would be helpful to just say the home team is the one that's doing that. So we designate, home team for each thing, similar to what the MIAA already does for their broadcasting, right? It all uploads in the end to the MIAA network, but in the meantime, the responsibility of that falls on the home team, just so there's easier production value. We set a standard of neutrality. I think when we're talking about hosting a neutral site, I would not be opposed to the creation of the MIAA esports, like a Twitch account that is where we end up putting like a game of the week, and then any neutral site games, I think could be a really effective way to go about that. I think ownership of the streams, I think, is something that I would like to say whoever is the actual production team has the overall, in the end, the ownership and the rights to the stream. But I think as well that it needs to be common use and fair use for the rest of the league. Just because if we're going to have other getting in it, we want to make sure that, again, it's the same that we can do for any of our other athletic competitions in the league. Blue Frame allows us to get to the back end and pull clips from any games. So I want to make sure that we can do that, at the same level here.
So like kind of following up on that. So say like if Pitt State were to be a midpoint between two universities, right?
Sure.
And like, would we be able to like host that stream, or is that going to be the responsibility of whichever team is designated as the home team to like have their people come and do the stream?
No, I think if it's in your venue, then that's your stream. If you're opening up the doors of your facilities to teams coming in, then that should be yours. I don't think that we should ask you to allow other people to get involved with your equipment, and B, expect them to have any understanding of the logistics of your facility. I think that if you're willing to be a host point, I think that comes. That's just, if you're going to have UCO play us in Pittsburgh, then we wouldn't want to impose that. I think that would be unrealistic.
Okay.
I had a question if y'all can hear me.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So one of the things y'all noted is in the official rule book that there will be a list of requirements for every school. Would that be like eligibility requirements for the teams, or?
Yeah, so that would be something that we would build out. Obviously, we have no requirements now, but we would come together and have that conversation. Should we require students be full-time, have academic standing? Probably those. But what other requirements? Like, do you need to have a space to be a part of this? Do you need to be able to stream to be a part of this? How much volunteer work do you need to put into this in order to be a part of it? Questions like those of building out the requirements. Nothing's like super strict. We're not trying to ostracize anyone. We're not trying to push anyone away. But just something that so we can keep the legitimacy and the production value of everything.
Yeah, and on the lines of production value, are we like striving for individual player cams, or would it just be like just trying to get the footage up with the nice graphics to get that like initial, established production value?
I mean, I think that goes down to what every institution has, right? Like, right now, like, yeah, I'll give you the example. Like, we would like to get player cams in the next 12 months. That's something that we want to incorporate into our streams. But if there's someone that is just starting that, maybe has just the capability to have footage with casters like that, I think that's enough. I think at entry level, I think as we're trying to feel our way through what each university is going to be willing, like long term, right? Support is going to vary between universities. Some schools are just going to jump right in on this day one. And then, there's going to be schools that, take 10, 15 years for admin to say, okay, yeah, we see the legitimacy of this and we give you, the backing to make this happen. So I don't think that it would be like, okay, if you don't have player cams and arena cam, people, a PTZ somewhere as well, like then it doesn't count. I think just whatever, in this initial stage, whatever you can muster, as long as we have streaming capabilities with those, with the graphics and the branding, to me, that's enough at least year one. I don't think it's feasible to expect too much beyond that until we can kind of gauge where everybody is at in terms of production value.
Gotcha. Awesome. I had one more question, but it's completely left my mind. Let me see if I can get it back. Hold on.
That's okay.
It's gone. I'll come back.
So here at MSSU, we have pretty limited ability to host any actual matches. Would we participate and travel and in this league?
100%. Just because you can't host doesn't mean that you can't be involved, right? We just want to make it so schools that can't host but still want to play in person have the ability to go somewhere, right? So like if you can't host but you still want to be able to play in-person events, that's the idea of the midpoints, is to kind of alleviate some of the stress of travel, because it's expensive to go a long ways, right? Yeah, you guys, going from Joplin to to Hayes, that's a long drive, and so we want to be able to kind of alleviate some of the pressure there. And yeah, if you can host, that's great. But if you can't, at least I think for now, that's not a big deal. I don't think that that's a problem. I think long term, eventually, the goal would be to get everyone to be able to. But again, institutional buy-in is not something that just happens, day one. And a big part of why we're doing this is to help all of our member institutions gain validity with their university. We think if we do something with the MIAA, right, that's something that all of our admins, in the athletic level, they're familiar with the MIAA and the schools that are in the MIAA. So if we're able to kind of help increase that validity to get you guys to the point eventually where maybe you can host because the institution's getting you more money. That's the whole idea. So
Great.
So that brings me to a good question. How is this partnership with the MIAA going to like come to fruition? Like, are we having conversations with representatives from the MIAA or?
So I can give you at least on my end. We are working with our athletic department right now. So we're housed under athletics. And so we're working with our athletic department right now. And once they feel like we have a functioning model, they would like to ideally, hopefully jump on board and help us run it up the flagpole. I just think that they need to see some validity. I can't speak for them 100%, but I think eventually we'd like to see this come from an institutional level where it's not just a bunch of us coordinators and directors, hopping on the phone with Mike Racy and saying, hey, we'd like to do this. I think that eventually we'd like to see this actually come from the schools. I think in the beginning, I think that we need to it's probably going to be an independent venture of schools that are in the MIAA, but if we can show validity, I don't see any reason why we can't bring this to them and say, hey, this is what we're going to do. Obviously that limits maybe some branding with the MIAA logo and using the name MIAA year one. I just think for now, I mean, as a placeholder, as we're all involved in that, it makes sense to just say like, this is what we're doing. But when we get into the actual official branding, until we get, official confirmation from the league that we're good to do this, yeah, that would be an issue that needs to be addressed.
And then being associated with the MIAA, would the esports programs need to be housed under athletics?
I don't think so. I think that there is a discussion of whether or not it becomes a championship sport, right? So on the same level as what like basketball and football would be. I believe, and Nathan, you're the one that has access to all the form data. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the vast majority of the programs that are even in this meeting right now are not athletically housed. And that's, I don't think, an issue. I think as long as there's institutional support, I would imagine that that's okay. Even if the MIAA is just supporting it at the club level, even if it comes out to something, I mean, and this is not the best example, but a similar example to how they host like Student Athletic Advisory Committee. They have a vested interest in that at that level, but it's not necessarily a competition. So it's a little bit different, but in the same sense that that's not housed directly under the athletic department. That's a student organization that the MIAA is working with. So I kind of envision maybe something to that level until we can kind of get, either all the schools invested in the athletic side of it, or the MIAA is willing to make a change.
Did he cut out or did I cut out?
I was wondering, with all these streams being put out, would there be a big Google Drive folder or something that, we all could dip into that's kind of managed by MIAA?
I mean, I would think that would be the way to go about it, to make sure that it's all publicly accessible to everyone in the league. I would think that would be the most appropriate way to handle it. Everyone just needs to upload the VOD of their game. And then, I mean, statistically as well, I know Nathan was mentioning he loves the stats and that side of things as well. So I'm sure that we could come up with a statistics database that comes along with that film as well.
Yeah, I'm very excited to be tracking analytics for this. I'm a big spreadsheet nerd, so I'm really excited to really dive deep and show some really impressive statistics for our students.
Are we open to playing online, or we want everything to be in person?
So there's definitely the encouragement for playing in person, but especially at first, any requirement for it is just unreasonable. It's just not something that's going to happen. And for, a lot of budgets are pretty tight, and it's hard to travel that much. Traveling can get really expensive, especially when you're traveling to like every school in the MIAA. It's just not possible. So online is certainly an option. It always will be, but setting sort of encouragement, like go to at least 2, 3, 4 events, just as much as possible, really. But no, online play is completely accepted and encouraged.
Awesome. And then I'm assuming you haven't got this far yet, but are we thinking any free?
I think year one, especially when we're not affiliated with the league necessarily, I'm assuming that we aren't able to necessarily be affiliated year one. I imagine that the cost would be minimal to none. Year one, I think it would be an effort of, you know, everybody in the league to help put some volunteer time into it. I think eventually I would like to see it get to the point where it's just built into the league fees from our schools. I think as we maybe increase the way that we do things, whether that's hiring a third-party production company, you know, down the road, or putting a venue together to host, you know, like a championship event, you know, whether that's, you know, Level Up Arena in Kansas City, which is obviously it's in Hy-Vee Arena now, which is where the MIAA offices are, you know, or whether that's, you know, wherever we decide to host something. I think eventually, yeah, there could be cost that comes with it, but at least year one, where we're just kind of getting this thing off the ground, I don't think it's reasonable to say, hey, you want to, you know, put, you know, $1,000 towards the league, because we couldn't probably just make that happen. I can't imagine that money it's something when it's a concept that's just being developed.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
So how would this interact with things such as the NACE or the NECC?
So this would be an addition. You know, we're not trying to take over those things. The opportunities that they have are, you know, so wonderful. And again, we wouldn't have any capabilities with so much local play to do more than 1 or 2 games, especially at first. It's just so hard to scale up streaming, trying to stream every single game for 4 titles. It adds up really quickly. So NACE being able to offer so many games, or the NECC being able to offer so many games at one time, giving students that opportunity. We're just trying to supplement that. We're trying to be something on top of it, to grow, to give students not just the ability to play online, but play in person.
So for the MIAA thing, is this supposed to be like a semester-long league play?
Yes.
I think the idea would be that we would develop a schedule of the schools that are interested, and then play it out similar to how you would, you know, play a regular season and then a conference tournament with a champion at the end. I think would be the idea. I think it would be probably, yeah, 1 semester. I think eventually something Nathan and I had thrown around is kind of running it similar to how athletics runs multiple sports. You know, you have your fall sports, your winter sports, your spring sports. I think that would be an idea that we would like to work on eventually. We just need to, I think, as we get more titles, that would be developed. But for now, yeah, I think the idea would be, you know, start early to mid-September, run through early December, late November, basically have the conference championship right around that time.
Okay, so then my concern, like with that, would be for the universities that are like members of NACE or the NECC or whatever, having a team entered in multiple leagues becomes like a pretty heavy time commitment for those students that are actually competing. So like, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I'll just give you the example from our side of things. And I mean, I guess this could maybe not be a universal thing, but this is the 3rd school I've been involved at in the admin side of esports, and I've had all my students I've ever had love the idea of more competition. So I guess my thought was, okay, competition for our students and more opportunity for them to, you know, compete and get better. That's ideal. If there becomes a time commitment issue, I guess that's a conversation to have. I don't know if each school has a limitation on how much they want their students, you know, participating. If there is If there is like a rule set that you all have, within your each individual institutions that say, oh, well, you can only play for X amount of hours. And if that's the case, then yeah, I think that's a legitimate concern. But at least for us, we've always kind of operated under the impression that students want to be more involved and have more things to compete in and more opportunities to win.
Okay. How frequent would the league matches be? Like, would we have a game every week, or would there be like downtime in between?
Nathan, I'll let you. I see.
Okay. I imagine, I mean, that's something that we would work out over the summer. Again, that's kind of a detail that we need everyone involved talking about. We want to hear everyone's opinions on that type of thing. But let's say of the 14 schools, I believe in the MIAA, we get, 6. We don't necessarily need to do one every week in that sense. We can space it out a bit, do it every 2 weeks, potentially every 3 weeks. To both, one, relieve the stress of traveling locally every week, if that's something that we got into, and two, also relieve the stress of students participating in NACE or the NECC. Just space out those competitions. So most weeks they only have 1 game, but some weeks they have 2, that sort of thing. But it really comes down to how many schools we have involved and what everyone else thinks.
Well, I don't know. Any other thoughts, concerns? I don't know. We've asked for a lot of questions. I would just love, some input, I think, from across the board if you guys are interested in that. And then just general levels of interest, if this is something that would be something you guys would like to participate in.
I think from my end, it sounds awesome. I think the 2 to 3 week range for travel sounds really nice, especially since we are in those weekly tournaments.
Sure.
Streaming is something we definitely want to pick up on. We don't have like a huge incentive to outside of like our weekly Smash tournament, so getting something to really get us going, it's going to be nice.
Sure.
I think we're in the similar boat of just sounds great, but we need to put in some effort on our campus to get up to speed and then just figuring out what everybody else is doing to match.
Yeah, same thing here. If we could, because I know Missouri Western, Emporia State, you guys are pretty far along, at least comparatively. If you would like to share how to get a setup for streaming and all that stuff, that definitely help us get further along in our process of making it to where we can actually start hosting matches and everything.
Sure, 100%. That's something we'd love to do. We're pretty. We had our school was interested a couple of years ago, and they've helped us along in anything we can do to help get other people to where they want to be. 100%. Yeah, most definitely.
But yeah, we've been wanting to do a lot more local stuff. Well, not necessarily local, but in-person stuff. But there's not very many opportunities in the area. So
Yeah.
we've done a couple of tournaments here and there, but we'd definitely like to get something more regular. So we would be interested in doing this.
Cool.
Do we know how many people here have spaces from the survey?
Let me pull that up. From the survey, we had 75%, so 6 say yes, and 2 say space is currently in the works.
Awesome.
Of those 70 of those, when it comes to streaming capabilities, 6 said yes, 1 said maybe, and 1 said no. So overall, we would have enough spaces to host something, pretty regularly in person.
And then I know part of that response as well from schools that aren't here. I know UCM filled out that survey. I know they're not involved in the meeting, and then Nebraska Carnegie also indicated that they would be interested in potentially being involved in this as well. I think actually the only two schools that have programs in the MIAA that we haven't heard from are Northeastern and Northwest Missouri. No, Northwest Missouri is going through some admin turnover right now in their rec services and their esports department both. So obviously that creates a little bit of an issue communicating with them. And then I know Northeastern has something. I just haven't been able to get in contact with them. I've emailed them a couple of times. So if anyone has any contact information with anyone over there beyond the email that's listed on the website, that'd be great. But we have, I think, that puts us up to 9 or 10 schools that are at least interested. So I think that there's, some decent legitimacy in what we're trying to make happen here. I don't know. I know Pitt State, Mr. Kozart, you guys have definitely asked a lot of really good questions. I don't know kind of where, if you can even say where your interest level is at the moment, if something you guys would be willing to kind of, work on. And then Kevin over at Fort Hays as well. Don't know kind of where you guys' heads are, if that's something you guys would be interested in having more meetings about, or if it just doesn't maybe suit what you're looking to do.
I don't really have like the authority to say yes, we want to do this. I'm gonna take it to my supervisor, Vince.
Sure.
I know as a fact that I am interested, and I'm going to be advocating for this here on my campus. I think it's a really great opportunity, and it's just going to be a matter of if I can get the approval for it.
Makes sense.
So
Totally.
This is Kevin. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Okay, so we do have a large space, and we also have a broadcast studio. I have forecasters. I've got, everything's volunteer. I think we have an Overwatch team that would be interested in doing it. I mean, our casters have had trouble doing Overwatch casting in the league that they're in because they're not supposed to have casting. So, they don't want spectators in the games. And so this would be a great opportunity to be able to do the broadcast side. And we're all pro broadcasting because that's where the money is. That's where you can get sponsors to put up ads and stuff like that. And we'd want to be able to, have a sponsor for things if we're the home team and we're doing the broadcast, we'd want to have the permission to do a sponsorship and put up an ad for whoever our sponsor is that week. And that generates revenue, and we don't really have much revenue from the university. So we're all kind of self-funded.
Sure.
I do very much like the concept of having a known schedule. There's nothing worse than not knowing who your opponent is until 3 days before the match.
Sure.
I would like a regular schedule. I don't know. I'm open to any day of the week. It just, I'd like to be able to put up a tweet that's, said Fort Hays versus MWSU, something, I'd like to get the marketing side is where I can draw my sponsors in. And so the visibility is really important. So I'm open to having just one team this fall, or even just stretching it from fall into spring. That's fine with me. I think the broadcasting is a really important part of it. And that's going to help people get in sponsorship and help fund their programs. So yeah, so we're definitely interested. I'll want to join any more Zoom calls you're going to have and stay involved. So
Awesome. That's fantastic. I definitely think, what you were saying about sponsorships and stuff as well. I mean, especially when we start talking about, communities that may not necessarily, not just the colleges, but the communities themselves that may not necessarily understand esports, it might be something that's a little bit foreign to them. And I know that that's something that's happening all across the country. Communities are kind of confused as to why this is happening. Why are we allowing people to just play video games all the time? That doesn't make sense, but I think that that's something that when you start putting names that they're familiar with, when you start saying, hey, we're playing Fort Hays, we're playing Pitt State, we're playing Washburn. I know at least for us, our community 100% would be significantly more interested if we said, hey, we have a conference game against Washburn. To them, that creates more interest than saying, hey, we're playing UC Irvine in Overwatch. They don't care. So even I mean that could be a huge game, and they just wouldn't care. So I think putting names that they're familiar with in front of them, yeah, so important. So yeah, 100%.
It's also a lot more fun to brag to people at my school, because if I tell them, we beat, Florida, like they don't care. They don't care about Florida's League of Legends teams. But when I say we beat Pitt State, everyone goes, who. Pitt State sucks, by the way. Their league team is awful. Like,
That's big talk coming from a guy without a league team right now.
yeah, you're right. We're coming in the fall, though. We're coming for you.
See, I wanted Northwest to be here because, my God, the blood, sweat, and tears that this community would put in for any chance to beat the guys in green up north at anything right now besides women's basketball, that would increase my community support by 1 million. I can almost guarantee it. So, well, I don't know if anyone has any more questions. I think that's great, but and then. Beyond that, I don't know if we want to schedule a time for next meeting, how we want to wrap this bad boy up.
Yeah, I'm interested to think what you guys think and when we should meet next. Like, I know a lot of you need to go and talk to people and sort of share this idea. So maybe it's best not to schedule anything right now, or we can shoot for maybe a week at the or day at the end of May. Something like that. Just next month, same rough time and schedule, to give us time to figure out some details and see where our university sits. But yeah, what do you guys think about that?
Yeah, late May would be cool, or if you want to just kind of shoot an email saying, hey, if you're ready to kind of talk further about it, either one would be great for us.
Well,
Yeah.
say for me personally, like I'm only part-time with Pitt State in my current position. So like I won't actually be, I guess, like in my position of coordinator for the when the academic year is not in session.
Mm.
So if we could do like early May, first 2 weeks of May, so like the end of next week or the following week.
Sure.
Yeah, May 13th, week of the 13th would be good by me too.
Okay. Yeah. Let's we can do that. Let's shoot for the week of the 13th then.
Actually, I
So
think
that
that's the 14th. Sorry, either one of them is fine with me, but that second week of May, I think is what he's talking about. But yeah, either one of those is fine.
Sure.
Yeah, like May 15th through the 19th. Would that work for you, Gabe? Or is that too late?
No, that's gonna be too late for me. I would need like the 8th through the 12th.
Okay. I can send out another win to meet then to discuss a meeting time, unless you guys are cool with this same time. So that would be the 8th at 11.
That would work for me.
I don't know how far you guys know your schedules.
I think that's good for me.
All right.
Okay,
Yeah, I can do that.
Cool. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. No reason to change. So, and at that meeting, we can really nail out some of the more details, like what does the scheduling look like depending on what schools, what game do we run, some of the more specific rules and regulations, and just any other questions. Maybe we can bring in some admin or people who have questions that aren't necessarily directly working in esports that want to know more. So yeah, we can just continue to hash out those details, continue to build this thing out. And hopefully by the end of the summer, we'll have something ready for the fall.
Sounds great. So you say you guys are gonna email out this recording?
Yes, I will be sending this recording to everyone who was here and then some. So yes, you will be receiving a copy of this.
And then also, Marion, if you are interested in getting the logistics of the streaming stuff set up as well, just shoot me or Nathan or whoever an email, and we can spend some time just talking about how the best way to go about getting that ready to roll is.
Yeah, I'll get in contact with you after this.
Perfect.
All right. Well, unless anyone has anything else that they want to talk about or any other points of concerns or questions.
Ready to roll.
All right. So thank you guys so much for being here. You guys will be receiving a copy of the recording. So thank you so much. And I can't wait to see you guys in a couple weeks.
Alrighty.
Bye all.
Bye guys.
Adios.
Thank you.